Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, brought to you by Yoshimura. 63 years of four-stroke exhaust research and development, and all that research and development has resulted in an exhaust system that will be bolted up to the back of a number 22 2019 Suzuki RMZ 450 that will be ridden by Chad Reed and raced by Chad Reed January 5th at Anaheim and beyond, because as we mentioned in our last episode of this podcast, despite all the trials and tribulations behind the scenes trying to get sponsorship and funding and dealing with a huge injury to Weston Pike, Joe Gibbs Racing MX and Suzuki are going to be on track in 2019, and Chad Reed is a part of that effort. Now, there's really not a better interview subject in this sport than Chad Reed, almost regardless of what's going on in his career, but it's certainly more intriguing than usual right now because he is moving, or as he says in this interview, he's moved. His house and his track and property in Florida are all up for sale. He's already purchased a house in Cornelius, North Carolina, which just happens to be down the road from where I live. So now Reedy and I are neighbors. We're going to get to make fun of Phil and hang out with Justin Brayton and everybody at the airport every Friday morning and Sunday morning. It's really a cool thing in this sport that we're small enough where we just fly commercial and everybody hangs out. There are definitely race weekends where it feels like half of the plane is motocross people. So Chad will be part of that group now, coming out of North Carolina. It's a huge change for he and his family. We get into that here. We talk about the Suzuki, all the manifestations to make this deal come together. Whatever, man. You could ask Chad Reed about the weather, and he'd give you some really interesting takes on it. So I'll give you Reed in a second, but first this. Podcast. Podcast. Yes, that's my Christmas present to you. Also, you could buy a late Christmas present. It's not going to get to you by Christmas, but go to racerxbrand.com. 20% off your order if you type in exhaust in all caps. Don't buy Steve Mathis's I Party in Temecula shirt. Don't type in PulpMX as your discount code. Type in exhaust, all caps. Give me the credit. Buy the podcast shirt. Better than an ugly Christmas sweater, an ugly t-shirt. It's awesome. Also, we have a new issue of Racer X Illustrated out. Every single thing in the magazine is exclusive to the magazine. You cannot read it online. You can read it either in print or the digital edition. This is jam-packed. We have a Rider of the Year feature. Davey Coombs wrote it with a big exclusive interview with Jeffrey Hurlings. I wrote a story about Jason Anderson, but I didn't talk to Anderson. I talked to the people that work with Anderson to size where he is mentally going into 2019 as a defending Monster Energy Supercross champion. We've got an interview with Trey Kennard. Have any idea what Kennard is up to these days? Well, we'll tell you. We also have a Supercross predictions feature, and we look back at 25 of the most, or maybe the most dramatic moments in Supercross history. That's just a part of the issue. A Joey Savacci feature. We talked to AJ Catanzaro and Luke Rensland about their retro straight rhythm bikes, just jam-packed with information you can't get anywhere else. So go to the subscribe page at Racer X Online right now. Sign up for the magazine every month, exclusive info, or you can read it digitally if you don't want to carry a magazine around. Now, on to our interview with Chad Reed. So you're, this is now official, this is real, but the part I don't understand is, are you like moving? Have you moved? What is the process here?
I was going to say, I wouldn't say moving, I would say moved.
How quickly did that happen?
It happened really quickly. Yeah. Literally 10 days. 10 days ago, Ellie and I were just basically trying to think what we did. Oh, I took the kids to some train thing. The movie about it. I can't even think.
Polar Express.
The Polar Express. Okay. Yeah. Yep. So anyway, we went to the Polar Express. It was like an hour from my house, and literally it was the first time that we had really like been next to each other, and we'd really just been able to talk. And I just said, like we're kind of going back and forth a little bit on what to do, just because that really, like the last couple of months has been pretty crazy. And I've been spending Monday to Friday in Charlotte and then going home on the weekends. And when I go home on the weekends, I didn't really want to talk business. And then I was prepping to go to Australia, New Zealand, Monster Cup, all these things. And anyway, long story short, we finally were just like, let's do this. Like I want something different. Like I feel like I'm ready. I shouldn't say I'm ready. I would say that Ellie and I are ready for a change in lifestyle. A change in pace and just different, different scenery. So yeah, like whether I was riding for JGR or not, like I was excited to make the move to Charlotte. There's a few other things. Obviously, it's very I should say motorsport orientated and driven area, and there's things beyond dirt bikes that I would like to be involved in. So, yeah, like my experience was that I want to be around the area. I want to go check it out. So. Fortunately, I have a job and now, now have, things to really be here for. But, yeah, we were kind of pretty much, stuck and on moving up here anyway.
How did you pull that off? Like I saw your track is for sale and all that. Is that still going on? Like you still have your stuff in Florida and you're still working on that while you're up here?
Yeah. So I still have my property and my house in Florida, and ideally that sells, as soon as possible. I have quite a few people interested on the track, so, and then, yeah, I'm a motivated seller at this point, like I feel like the track and the facility is unbelievable and it's amazing and it's served its purpose over and over for me. But I'm just at a point where like I'm ready for something different. I'm ready to show up. Like today, for instance, was the first day in months that I had left my house where my wife and kids were, kissed them goodbye, went and rode a dirt bike and came home, and I'm heading home to them. That has been a long time coming for that. And it felt like now everything feels normal. I showed up this morning, my dirt bike was there and ready. I threw some gear on. I went and rode and got out of my gear and left and said, "See you tomorrow, boys." Like
Yeah.
it feels really nice to have that, not so much having to worry about all the other stuff.
So how did you even like find a place that quickly, or had you always been looking a little bit throughout these last few months?
Yeah, we'd been looking a lot actually.
Okay.
So yeah, like throughout that time, and then obviously, like I said, I'd been spending Monday through Friday, up here. So it gets quite lonely. There's only so much riding and training you can do. So, in between, all those things, I was, basically the wife in Florida was telling me, "Hey, go check this out," and I'd be driving and checking this out, and then driving over and checking another place out, and it's like obviously when you're on the same page and you've been around, your person for that long, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what they're after and whatnot. So I felt pretty confident that we kind of, settled on an area and we just kind of went after it.
Look, you're so well known for you're not retiring. You keep racing. You keep racing. You keep racing. That's one of the things that's going to follow you forever now. Have you ever been this close to the point where you're really starting to like, I need to make some decisions based on what I'm going to do when I'm done racing? Have you ever been at that point in your career where you're like, okay, I have to start thinking about beyond being a Supercross racer? Or was this the first time you've squared up with those types of goals?
No, I would say that, like, I feel like I've said it, like I've done a few interviews lately, and it's like
I'm sure you
the
have.
common, the common thing for me, like really what made me feel like after Supercross, and immediately I was just like, dude, that was, from a racing standpoint, that was not fun. I didn't enjoy it. Something needs to change, like it's not okay to, like that was way below my, my expectations, way below what I'd been able to do in the past. And more than anything, knowing the facts behind it and just knowing that like deep inside myself, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm 36 years old, my body hurts and I can't train, I can't do this. Like it wasn't an age restricting me, like it really wasn't. It was just like the single fact that I had an injury at the wrong time and it took a long time to come back from. And right after Supercross, I was like, okay, that box is ticked. I'm never going to run my own team again. Like that was one thing that just, and I guess when you come to that realization that, okay, I'm not going racing on my own.
Mm-hmm.
So you tick that box and you put yourself in a very, like you put yourself in a vulnerable place. It's confronting to go, I'm not going racing alone. So then you have to get a job, right? So then,
if you don't get a ride, you're now done. Right.
And so you have to be willing to let it all go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was willing to go, okay, if I don't get a factory job ride, then I'm done. Like that, I don't want to do it anymore for less than a factory ride. I feel like I'm deserving. I'm the only other Supercross champion out there. I've won more races than anybody currently racing. All these things, and I feel that I deserve that, and I'm willing to put the work in to make it all worthwhile for whoever was going to take a bit of a gamble on me. So luckily, one thing led to another in August, and I ended up getting a chance to race a national at Ironman, and one thing led to another, and here we are on the on probably, in my opinion, the best team and bike for me in currently today.
But it looks like it all worked out so smoothly. You showed up in August, you raced a national, and here you are riding for the team. But I know, like behind the scenes, it was not nearly that smooth. There were probably lots of times where you literally had no idea if this was going to come together, right? Like you were trying to fight the good fight, but it definitely wasn't a guaranteed deal from what I could tell.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people, like, obviously, like I've been riding, training, testing. I race Monster Cup, Australia, New Zealand.
Yep.
So I think the general, understanding was, oh, it's just a matter of time before they announce it.
Yeah.
But behind closed doors, like that was not necessarily how it was going on for us. Like, like I think Gibbs, is well, should I say not Gibbs? I think the sport is in a tough position. There's not a lot of sponsors and people coming and spending money in motorsports right now. And we fell short. Like we don't have a title sponsor right now. I started going through my phone book of all the people that who have been solid and helped me out in the past, and they didn't pull through, so yeah, definitely it's been a struggle. But it's kind of, I wouldn't call it funny, but what's kind of a little bit interesting is when I went to Suzuki last time, it wasn't easy, like it was like, okay, you're on, you're doing it, we agreed. And then it like totally got pulled off the table. And I was like, kind of like jobless for a second, or, like about 2 weeks I was jobless, and I'm like, what do we need to do? Roger was like, yep, we're not doing it. Rockstar this and whatever. And then, so here we are 10 years later, and kind of I think that I always believe that, good things are worth fighting for. And this was definitely a place I really wanted to be. And I'm excited that it's now official, and I only just signed my contract literally yesterday. So, so though from the outside it looked like a no-brainer, and we were teasing and all these things, like it was a real possibility that this couldn't have, may not have happened. So,
so had you spent some mornings or looking in the mirror where you'd said like, man, I might not be racing in 2019? Like at some point you had to have at least had those thoughts crossing your mind. Sound like it could have happened. Yeah.
I would say that when I felt like I put a lot of, I had a lot of pressure on myself in Sydney. I felt like Sydney, going into Sydney, I left North Carolina knowing that things weren't good. Things were a bit of a struggle. And I kind of went there with the idea of I really wanted to go and win. I really wanted to do well, because there was a feeling that it could have been my last time, doing it. And I just, man, I really struggled the whole time, and it was tough on me because there's a part of me that really wanted to do well and kind of be that, that send off, thank you, Australia. You guys have been awesome to me. Appreciate it, and win a race. And it just did not go to plan, the weekend was a struggle. Right away from Friday morning practice, I was like, man, it's gonna be a long weekend. Like there was just something that didn't feel right. And then I felt like I took some time off and regrouped, and I was, obviously better in New Zealand. And then I won all 3 races. And when I left New Zealand, I was also had that feeling like, so my first ever professional race was in New Zealand. And I'm like, literally, my first and last race could be in New Zealand. So I was like, okay, like I was good with it. And then I was getting on a plane, and then I was going to get on another plane and go do some car racing. So really, I didn't get to really think about it too much. And I had an absolute ball. I had a blast in Italy driving race cars. And I can honestly say I've never done anything. I've never witnessed that feeling that you get from a dirt bike, and I got it in a rally car, and I was like, okay, I'm good. Like this is okay. Like if for some reason this doesn't all work out, like I'm gonna be all right. Like there's life beyond, like this feeling is possible beyond dirt bikes. So right when I kind of embraced the possibility of it, it all started to, like start to fall into place. So it was, yeah, you definitely had my ups and downs, like my emotions have been all over the place the last couple of months.
Yeah, and honestly, what I've seen in all the JGR guys, I mean, it's been an off season where they are all trying to just operate as if everything's normal. But for you and those 250 guys, it just hasn't been. So do you feel like when you've gone to the track, we know in Australia and New Zealand it was a little tough mentally, but at least when you're doing your work during the week, have you been able to block most of that out and just approach it like any other season, despite all those emotions and all these other things happening?
Like the good thing, it's kind of weird in a weird way. Like the one thing I miss about my own team is the operating and the running side of it, and trying to be creative and trying to find ways to, to do it at the level that you want to do it at, and and talking to different sponsors and things like that. So J-Bone, Coy, and David were all very, very much like, I sat in meetings that I'm sure normal riders don't get to sit in, and I was savvy to a lot of information, and not because I was necessarily, I think just they respected the fact that I'd been there before. I understood the situation very, very well, all too well, to be honest. And they just, like, it was like constantly, it never felt like a drag. I'll honestly say for me, it never felt like a drag. It actually felt somewhat therapeutic, and kind of like that, like I was able to, get ideas and get things off my mind that I lacked using that part of my mind, the last couple of years not running 2-2 motorsports. So, in a strange way, it all felt kind of normal and actually right, and all things good again. So, no, I didn't mind it. Obviously, it's stressful for them because it's the financial burden's on them, not me. So that's maybe why it felt a little bit, nicer this go around.
Okay, so how have these guys been to work with? This is where you get to basically sell yourself for next year. How has this process been? How are you riding? How is the team? How's all that going?
I think right from the beginning, it was like, I don't know how I would put it into words, but like, I wouldn't say I had like a positive or a negative feeling about the Gibbs team and organization, like when J-Bone asked me if I would race the last national, it was only 1 week prep, like I'm kind of like, okay, I haven't raced motocross in 3 weeks. So like there was kind of a lot of pressure. And then when I came, I quickly came up to speed. I quickly got on page with everybody. I felt like right away I felt at home, and that's special, like that's something that's pretty unique. I don't always, like with my experience and being around as long as I have, like it's not always that seamless and that smooth. So I immediately loved the bike. I immediately bonded well with the team. And so kind of just, like it's kind of been one thing to another, and it's been enjoyable. Like that's probably, I would say, the biggest thing for me is just like the honesty and the fairness, and then just the quality of people is what I've enjoyed most about my time at Gibbs.
Okay, a couple details here about moving away from Florida. How weird is it? Like, okay, we had some decent weather today, but it's not Florida weather, as you probably experienced here and there while being around. The track is different. Does it seem that different from what you're used to? Since, I mean, honestly, how long were you doing that Florida thing? 15 some years? How long do you have that place?
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty much 16 years driving down the same road in the same place in the same, all the same circumstances of, did the track get watered properly? Did it get overwatered? Did it, and like when you're the boss and you're the guy, and like you feel, like you always feel responsible, like I feel and responsible for somebody or something. And I can just say I feel light, and I feel free of the bullshit. There's always bullshit in racing, let's be honest, but I just feel better and lighter because I don't have to babysit somebody or do anything like that. Like it just feels like the weather, it's a little colder, and you guys had snow last week, so there's piles of ice in the parking lots, and my kids absolutely love it and want to jump on it and get wet. They're actually currently pissed off because there isn't any snow on the ground, because I showed, obviously it was quite a lot of snow for December for you guys. So then, you show them, hey, this is where we're going next week. And then they get here expecting to think, that there's going to be all this snow on the ground, and they're bummed. Oh, North Carolina, it's a myth. There's no snow, which I'm totally okay with. But honestly, it doesn't feel abnormal for me yet, because I feel like I've been spending so much time here. It's kind of been my home away from home since August, really, anyway. So, I don't know that people realize how much time I really have been spending here. Like for me, it just feels normal, and then like I'm driving through little neighborhoods and the areas that I have been already driving through. The only thing is I'm actually going to my house where my family is, and that feels awesome.
Hey, it's Weege. I'm interrupting this interview. You don't want to hear from me. I'll sing the song, though. I will sing that song. I will threaten you. Or just take this information about our sponsors, Yoshimura, 63 years of four-stroke research and development. They build the pipes right here in the United States. They've got something no matter what type of bike you ride. Check them out, yoshimura-rd.com. Go to racerxbrand.com, buy some stuff, type in exhaust in all caps, save 20%, and read RacerX Illustrated, the magazine. You can read it in print or digital. It's cheap. It's $10 for a digital subscription. It's $20 for the magazine. And everything in there is different than anything you'll see on social media, online, anything else. It's totally exclusive. I work way too hard, along with this other crew, to make this magazine for you to be like, well, I already read it. No, it's totally different. So subscribe to the mag, buy some shirts, and check out Yoshimura next time you need exhaust products for your dirt bike. Now, back to the interview. Hey, the moving part. Now, moving is one of the most stressful things ever. You motocross guys are more used to it than most, because, I mean, you're spending half of the year on the West Coast and going back and forth all the time. But seriously, like moving, like what did that take? I mean, are we talking like moving trucks were packed up, or what the hell did you guys do this last week or so?
Yeah, so obviously being this close to Christmas, we actually had a company come highly recommended, and they didn't pull through. So we had basically a moving crew come, and we didn't move 100% like everything, like we basically bare minimum we did our 3 bedrooms, and then enough to basically get through for the months of the Supercross. And our house is currently for sale, so we kind of left our house somewhat staged, where I'm hoping somebody comes and says, your house is awesome, can we have it just like this? And I'll be like, yep, you can, and then I don't have to worry about, I can go and take all my pictures off my walls and then leave all the furniture and and walk away from it. That's my ideal move right there. But, we had a moving company come and basically throw everything into a U-Haul, 26-foot U-Haul. And then we drove it up here, and we had another company come and unload it, put everything in there, and I'm completely moved in. I'm hoping that this morning I left, suitcases, and I'm hoping to come home today to it all hung up in my wardrobe. That would be real nice. If not, then my job tonight will be hanging my clothes and putting all my clothes up.
How have the kids coped, man? Because that's a big change for them. They've only lived in one place, so
I think that the kids obviously, they're not quite old enough to understand what's really going on, and I think that that's good and bad. They like leaving their school and checking them out of school. Like I told them, like, hey, your last day of school, like tell your friends, like tell them goodbye, because
that's like really goodbye.
You won't get to see them again, and but yeah, like I think that they're kids, and I think that they're like like Ellie and I do our best to to make home and whatever, but I think that tomorrow morning we're going to go check out some schools and stuff like that in the area, and but I think that they're so used to bouncing around and going to different places, and they're always around different people, so I think that they do have the luxury of traveling a lot and having to be used to new people and all these kinds of things. And for me, I I feel very confident that they're gonna be okay.
So are you going to be just like on these Charlotte flights with the rest of the team and all this stuff? You're just in this mix now. It's so crazy to think you're just in this mix in this area, and there's a lot of other riders too. They're not just JGR people. It's so interesting. Like it's all changed for you. Different airport, different airline, everything. I would think. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been a Delta guy for so long, and before Delta, I was actually American, which American is affiliated with Qantas, so probably probably back on the American train, which I'm excited to have a lot more direct flights. I'll probably see your ass at the the airports more often. So just like a new vibe, I think. When I think of the people, the Gibbs people and all their all the personnel and everything like that, and then I think of JB and yourself, and I'm good. I'm excited about being around some good people. So embracing whatever's next.
I do have to ask a little bit about the racing. Like, look, American fans, last time they saw you race was Monster Cup. I don't know if you want to hang your hat on that one. The last race was good. But is that any indication at all? Or should we just be like, we'll just wait till Anaheim and see how he's doing?
I don't think I'm trying to think how I would answer it. I think that when, like going to Australia and I won my heat race, and, and I, like speed wise, I wasn't off, or I was a little off on practice times and stuff like that in Oz, but I think that like a couple of different situations and starts in the main events in Australia, and I think I easily am a top 3 guy. I crashed out a third in the first race. I went to New Zealand and won all 3 races really easily. The last one I got, like Brayton was right on me, and I felt really good and comfortable and confident in what I was able to do then. And that guy's been winning a lot of the off-season races. He's been on the podium. He won a race last year. So yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that I feel that I'm not far off, like I feel that I'm 36 years old. I'm not supposed to win races, but that's for the past, like I believe I can, and and that's what motivates me day in and day out. That's why I'm here, is to be the best that I can be. It's not really anything else at this point. And I guess that's probably why I love so much about my age. Like, I honestly, like, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't turn back time even if I could possibly do it. I just feel that I'm at a good point. I'm happy. Whatever's my position is what it is, and you just continue to work and make it better. And so let's see. I wouldn't be surprised to surprise some people. And I have some goals that I think are realistic.
So when you're riding the bike, either in these races or during the week, you're feeling pretty good. Things feel good. We never know how it translates to the first actual race. It can go either way, but right now you feel pretty good.
Yeah, I don't feel bad. I don't feel too far off at all. Like I said, like Australia and New Zealand didn't go terrible. I got a third in the last race at Monster Cup, and and truthfully wasn't stoked on how I rode. Like, I felt like I left a lot out there. And I feel that we've come a long way with the bike since then. So yeah, like I would be, I'd be lying if I didn't think that I could be, competitive at some point this year for sure.
Now, my last thing here, there's some irony. Did you originally get a call to go to Paris Supercross when Marvin first got hurt, and then instead Pike went? Is that how that actually turned out?
Yeah. I got a call. I was in Australia, and Eric Pernard called me, and he's like, "Hey," which was actually, obviously, I was unaware of Marvin even being hurt. Seems like when you're in Australia, you're pretty, like you're far enough away that you just really don't hear a lot of the chitter chatter that you hear, immediately here. So yeah, like, I was surprised when he said, "Hey, Marvin got hurt. We need somebody, and can you come?" And I said, "Let me think about it. Give me an hour." And first call I made was to Ben, my mechanic Ben, who was also in Australia with me. And I quickly just kind of was like, "Dude, can we even pull this off?" Like, it was a maybe like a Tuesday evening. So like the earliest that I could leave is like basically jump on a plane the next morning, which would have put me, like, it's basically 28-hour flight, 30-hour flight to Europe. But the problem is we would have had to connect through the US because we didn't have anything, like my suspension and my bike all got shipped from Australia to New Zealand. So we didn't have access to any of that. And obviously my bike was on the carnet. So then you can't just steal stuff out of the crate not that we had access to the crate, but like, so basically everything that we had in Australia we never had access to it. So we would have had to go to, back through the US, pick up suspension and all these kinds of things. And for me, it was just, I've always made decisions based on what feels right, not financial decision. And from a financial situation, I should have jumped on the plane, and that was an easy choice to make. But for me, it just didn't. When I looked at the big picture and I tried to make sense of it, I couldn't pull off what I wanted to do. Jumping on a bike and throwing suspension clamps on it, it's just not my thing. Like, it's just, like when I go racing, the quality of guys like, Zach and Anderson and, guys that have got their full works bikes, like you don't, you're too close to the season to want to, give up. It's such a mental game. You don't want to give up. You don't want to go there and get smoked or, not have the right feeling. And then suddenly you start second guessing that, oh, you're off here or you're off there, when it's really, you just don't have the full program together,
Yeah,
so I said no.
His start sucked, and he's like, "Well, I got a stock engine against work bikes," and we're all, of course, us dumb pundits are like, "Dude, he's got to work on his starts." But he had to stop.
But hey, I mean, it. But the check cashed,
That's right.
And
That's true.
and obviously that, that's okay for him, and that, but for me, it's, I just didn't, I couldn't make sense of it, and didn't want to overload. Like, my off seasons are always well thought out and well planned. You know, when to push, when to pull back, and all those things. And I just didn't think that a 30-hour flight to Europe and a 30-hour flight back was necessarily in my greatest good of my off season.
So the unfortunate thing is, look, no one wants to get a ride under these circumstances, whether it's a torn ACL or a broken wrist or, in Pike's case, horrible injuries. But oddly, that's the reason that this came together. He raced Paris, and unfortunately he got hurt. It's just a strange irony. I know that's not how you wanted to get a ride, but that's how it did turn out, right?
I would disagree because I believe that I believe that I go racing. We were so far down the road, and we were, you know, like, I honestly, in my opinion, maybe J-Bone and Coy have a different, but in my opinion, I was going racing, you know, with or without, you know, Weston. So I think it probably made it actually probably almost put more pressure on them to then have to make it happen, or not so much have to make it happen, but they probably had a whole new circumstances of things to deal with. But I really think that I was the third guy. I mean, that was always the plan, was me to be the third guy. So I really had confidence in being able to pull that off. So I'd happily be the third guy, you know, and not see Weston hurt. Obviously, that's a real bummer. But yeah, I don't think Weston's injuries necessarily weighed on it. Like, that's just my personal opinion of what you know, the conversations that I was in and what I was willing to do to go racing with this team. I think that I was fine. There was a position that was always gonna, you know, come available.
Okay. Well, hey, I'm glad I asked then to hear your opinion on that, because I think the obvious thing everybody assumes is one thing happened.
Yeah, I think I think that's the obvious thing people are thinking. But I by no means do I think that this is, you know, and I think that the release yesterday was pretty clear in the fact that, you know, I wasn't announced as the fill-in rider or anything like that. You know, like, I've been a part of this team since August, and, you know, not officially, but, you know, like, I think that we all commonly, you know, had the same goal.
Yep. Okay. And it's going good. We'll see what happens at the races, but it's certainly worked out. I mean, that's a shot in the dark you were taking showing up in August. That's for sure, that this was going to work out in January, but it came together.
Yeah, and, you know, and behind closed doors, there was a lot of other discussions going on, and it's, like, I'm fascinated by the possibilities, you know, like, when doors close and randomly new doors open. I just think that, like, you got to be present, and I think that when you're living in the present, I think that good things happen, and you end up where you're supposed to, you know, end up. And like I said, I'm really happy. I've made a huge change. Like, this is not me just jumping onto a yellow bike. This is a massive lifestyle change that I was excited about. So there's been a lot of planning gone into this, you know, even though it was only official yesterday. The big picture has been, you know, there's been a lot of things going on behind closed doors for sure.
Okay. And have you even thought about real job in the Charlotte area after racing, or is that just like, I'll put myself in position, but I'm not thinking about that yet? I'm still just racer guy.
What's a real job?
Well, I don't know. You said, like, I'm in a motorsports area with stuff I like. So
yeah, I don't know that I
necessarily mean job. You might mean other motorsports, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I don't plan on ever working a normal job. I saw my dad's hands when I was a kid, and at that moment I said, I'm going to work my damn ass off. I'm going to be really, really good at something, because I don't ever want to have a real job. So I've gone 36 years without a real job, so we'll see.
Okay, you're in the motorsports area, and we'll just keep the options open. That's actually way more intriguing to hear it that way than you're just going to work in, like, some dumb shop or something like that, or be a coach or something. Oh, that's great.
That's not necessarily. That's not in my near future. Not in my plans. Not in my plan.
Good. That's way better. We want to see Chad Reed doing Chad Reed things. That's cool.
Yes.
Okay, that's Chad Reed. He gave us double time because he also did an interview with Davey for the magazine that'll be coming. Should I not say that? Am I not supposed to reveal that that's coming? Whatever, man. You'll see it soon enough. Totally different interview about totally different stuff. I'm just talking about moving to North Carolina. We'll be hanging out. Awesome. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to Yoshimura, our sponsor. Thanks to RacerXBrand.com and RacerX Illustrated, the magazine. That's what's helping us keep the lights on here so I can do these podcasts. And thanks to you for listening. Tried to pump this one out quickly so you could enjoy it over the Christmas holiday. Maybe you get some cool Bluetooth headphones, the small earbud ones, so you can sit there and listen to Chad Reed while your family thinks that you're listening to them. That's my gift to you. That's it for our show. We'll be back after the holiday. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for listening.